This video is brought to you by O'Sullivan Law. Check them out in the link below. So Jen, usually when we have all four of the definitive four-wheel drives on the market, we're out in the rocks, getting dirty, getting muddy. What the heck are we doing out here on an airstrip?
Well, 99% of the time, you're driving on road, so let's see what's fastest.
That's right, we're going to do a quarter-mile drag race with the Jeep Wrangler, the Toyota 4Runner, the Land Rover Defender, and the Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon. Now, all four of these four-wheel drives are modified in one way or another, if just slightly so. So let's start with Bill here. Jen, our 2024 Jeep Wrangler, what have we done to it?
Well, it is actually bone stock, but we did upgrade the tires to these BFG All-Terrain TA KO3s, and they are the same size that you would find on the Wrangler Rubicon. Next up, we have our 2020 4Runner SR5. Tommy, what have we done to this one?
Well, this is our producer Grant's car. It's got a little bit of a lift on it. It's got some AEV components like these Salto wheels and BFG KO2s and a winch and some slight armor components. So listen, it's a little bigger and a little heavier than stock, right, Jen?
Yes, absolutely.
Our Defender 90 base model, what mods does this car have?
This is actually also pretty stock. The only thing we changed was the tires. We put some BFG All-Terrain TA KO2s in the same tire size that come on the vehicle to begin with.
And lastly, we come to our long-term 2016 Mercedes-Benz G63. Now, Jen, what have we done to this car?
Also pretty stock minus the wrap, but we did put some Falcon Wild Peaks on, and they are slightly bigger tire size than what came on it.
So look, we've got older cars. This is a 2016 G-Wagon. We've got newer cars, a brand new Wrangler. We've got different size tires. We got some off-road mods on that 4Runner. Look, this is not the end-all, be-all in scientific testing. This one is all about fun. All right, guys, so I'm really excited for this video, not because it's the most scientific thing in the world, just because I am genuinely curious of these four, which one is going to be quickest down the quarter mile. So let me walk you through the first contender. This is a 2024 Jeep Wrangler Sport with a 3.6 liter Pentastar V6, the legendary Pentastar, which has been around for going on, what, in the Wrangler, 13 years now. It's got 285 horsepower, 260 pound-feet of torque. It's mated to an 8-speed automatic transmission, and it sounds like this. Jen, that's the Jeep. Walk me through that 4Runner.
So in the 2020 4Runner, it's an SR5. We've got a 4-liter V6. It's got 270 horsepower, 278 pound-feet of torque, mated with a 5-speed automatic.
So Jen, do you think you have a shot against the Jeep in that Toyota?
The thing that worries me is this 4Runner weighs obviously a lot more than the Jeep, and the Jeep already has a little bit more horsepower, so I don't know, it's gonna be close.
That is the current 4Runner, which has been around since 2010. It's 15 years old, and finally we're getting the replacement. We're gonna have to bring that out here and see how it compares, but this will be a good baseline for all the Toyota fans out there to see how the legendary 5th gen compares. So we're both going to brake torque these vehicles, and then we're gonna give a thumbs up to Gavin. He's gonna go 3, 2, 1, go. When he sets go, we just go full throttle. There's no sport mode in either of these vehicles, and we'll see who gets to the finish line first. Are you ready, Jen?
Let's do it.
Okay, so a light brake torque. Oh, full throttle. Good launch in the Jeep. Over 6,000 RPM.
Oh goodness, that is slow. Oh, that's so slow.
These little two-doors, even with the 345 gears, with the 8-speed automatic and the Pentastar, these things are little hot rods.
Come on, 4Runner, come on. Come on, come on, come on, come on.
She's just falling further and further behind. Oh boy. How was that, Jen?
Well, kind of what I predicted, Tommy.
This is a big gal and not as much horsepower.
What did you do in the quarter mile?
Quarter mile was 18:10.
Oof, not great. The Jeep Wrangler did it in 16:43. My 0 to 60 was 8.7 seconds. Now look, folks, this is not apples to apples. We got the two-door base Jeep against a slightly modified and lifted 4Runner. Obviously, people are going to be grumpy. You can send your grump mail to me directly. I'm all here for it, just for pure fun, once again. But yeah, look, 4Runners, Jen, not very quick, huh?
No, but I don't think they were really necessarily ever designed to be quick.
Yeah, they're designed to last 1,000,000 miles and bore people at parties about how much you love your 4Runner. No, they're excellent vehicles. They're really effective at what they're designed to do. But honestly, at a mile above sea level where we're at, there's a lot of 5th gen 4Runners really screaming going up the mountains with some pretty frustrated drivers because they just do not have a lot of oomph. This video is sponsored by our friend Scott O'Sullivan at O'Sullivan Law and Rider Justice. If you have any legal needs, call Scott first. He's a friend of the channel and he is truly the best. So pretty big defeat for the 4Runner against the Jeep, but this is the race I've been most excited for. It's two-door versus two-door, both on BFG tires, both essentially the base models. Talk me through that Defender.
So on this Defender, we have a turbocharged 2-liter i4 with 296 horsepower, 295 pound-feet of torque, mated with an 8-speed automatic.
But it's also pretty heavy. We're talking a 4,500 pound curb weight, which is several hundred pounds more than the Jeep. It's a much bigger vehicle. Both have 8 speeds. You have a full-time 4-wheel drive system. I'm just running in 2-wheel drive, but traction hasn't been an issue. I'm excited to see what happens. Now, obviously, there's a lot of different Defenders, right, Jen? There's the 4-cylinder, the 6-cylinder, the V8. That's just the basic 4, but it's turbocharged, which should help you up here, but it's heavier. I don't know, dude. This is going to be a close race.
We'll see how it goes.
Okay, here we go. Come on, Jeep, for the pride of America.
Woo! Got that turbo kicking in. See you later, Tommy.
Good launch of the Jeep. This thing gets off the line hard. That Defender, though, is pulling on me. Not by much. Come on, Pentastar. Scream your life away. That's what you do best.
Come on, baby. Come on, baby.
No, she's getting away. There's 75 miles an hour. There's 80 miles an hour. She's still just barely pulling away.
Woo!
Oh, man. Well, she got me that time.
I was at 15.93 for the quarter mile.
15.93. Now, I was in the mid-16s again. But yeah, I mean, clearly, slightly better launch in the Defender, and then it just kind of slowly pulled on me all the way down the track.
That turbo certainly helped me out, that's for sure.
Well then, you probably were feeling pretty good about things. How about now, Jen?
Well, considering what you're driving, I'm not feeling so good about this next race.
Yeah, so this is our long-term 2016 Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon, the only one here with 3 locking differentials and the only one here with a twin-turbo V8. Jen, 560 horsepower, right?
Yeah, 560 pound-feet of torque, but you have over 1,000 pounds of curb weight on me.
Yeah, these things are heavy. They're narrow, they're kind of funky in proportions, but they are heavy because they are old school solid axle mechanical locking beasts. Now, Jen, I've never driven this thing down the quarter mile. We've got these slightly upsized Falcons, which will probably hurt me a little bit, and I also have about 73,000 miles more than you do. The crazy thing is, though, these cars were pretty similar in price. That was a $53,000 Defender. This is a $58,000 G-Wagon that we both bought used. Obviously, though, that Defender's a lot newer. So, are you ready for this?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay, I'm in sport mode on the transmission. I got traction control off in the G-Wagon. Like brake torque. Boost up those turbos and full throttle. God! Wow, this thing may be almost 9 years old, but it still holds butt.
Oh, and he's gone. He's gone. I knew it right away. This turbo helps, but that's a bi-turbo V8.
There is 80 miles an hour already. 90 miles an hour in a brick. Coming up on 100 miles an hour there.
I had a little bit of trouble getting off the start, but my quarter mile was 16:10.
Yeah, and I kind of beat you by quite a bit. I ran a 13:76 which is pretty freaking awesome for, you know, an off-roader of any age, let alone one that's, you know, 9 years old now. So really impressed with this G-Wagon at a mile above sea level, with how much this thing weighs and the complete lack of aerodynamics. This is one impressive machine.
Yeah, you were gone right away, but that's kind of what I expected.
So I thought it'd be cool to kind of do a little on-road segment and talk about what these 4 machines drive like you said, Jen, where people are driving every day.
Yeah, so this 4Runner is not designed for tight corners performance. It is designed to, you know, off-road and be kind of durable. But the stability, the cornering, it, you know, just the steering itself is kind of loosey-goosey here.
Jen, do you know how many Toyota fans we have that are gonna start sending us hate
Hey,
mail?
no. I mean, nothing negative by that, Tommy. But it is, you know, how many? I mean, when you go to the track, do you see a lot of 4Runners on the track?
Not a lot of 4Runners on the track. Bringing up a good point. Yeah, look, and this one has not been helped by the slight lift, right, and by the oversized tires. I would say that from an driving dynamic standpoint, you're 100% right. They're pretty compromised. There's not a lot of power. There's not a lot in terms of steering feel or brake feel or ride composure and turns.
No.
You know, it's pretty agricultural. What it is, though, for the capability of this vehicle, is actually pretty comfortable and quiet.
It is. It is very comfortable. I drove this up here to the track today and was very pleased.
Yeah, and you know, you got a pretty good sound system. You got a great heat system. The interior is basic, but super easy to clean, which is a huge plus. So you're absolutely right. From a daily standpoint, it's not a fun car to drive. And it certainly isn't going to win any races, as we just proved.
Yes.
Quite literally not going to win any races. But if you have a small family or a big dog and want something that's able to go through the mountains with ease, but also, you know, be okay around town and on your occasional highway road trip, it's not bad.
Yeah, because this thing is big, but it's not gargantuan to where it's hard to park or hard to maneuver. It's like a perfect size.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. It's kind of like the Goldilocks, you know. it's not so big where you're struggling in parking garages, but it's not like the Jeep where you're really cozy. Speaking of the Jeep, let's go drive the Jeep. It is really interesting. Maybe it shouldn't be interesting, but I think it's kind of interesting. You can have a Jeep with big tires and solid axles and, you know, very off-road oriented features that accelerates like this little guy does.
I mean, she's booking it. She's cruising.
Everybody dismisses the Pentastar V6 for being a little bit old and a little bit thirsty, but it is a pretty solid little mill, and it's actually been known in recent years to be pretty reliable. They had some problems with the early ones, and other than some oil filter surrounds, actually people love these Pentastar V6s. I just talked to a Master Tech, and he says he sees these with well over 250,000 miles all the time, which is cool. But, engine aside, this is not the most comfortable vehicle of the 4.
No, not entirely. I mean, because of these knobby tires, you do get a little bit of a rougher ride, but it's not as bad as I would have expected.
Yeah, I think the biggest surprise for me after owning this now for about 3,000 miles, the 2-door Sport is sprung very softly. So if you isolate just the spring rate and the shock absorbing capability from like the seats and some of the noise, it's actually a really smooth ride, which is really surprising. Almost too smooth, like you hit an expansion joint. It kind of does this. Yeah, but then you bring in the other characteristics like the wind noise and like, you know, some of the road handling, and it's not as comfortable as a Toyota.
But I mean, that's also kind of what to expect with a removable top.
Yes. 100%. 100%. This is the only one of the 4 where you can pull the top and the doors off and get the full open air convertible experience, which is worth a lot to me and it's worth a lot to other people. What I will say about Jeeps, they're very dependent on features to determine the daily livability. So stuff like the hardtop makes it more livable.
Right.
Stuff like the 4-door makes it more livable.
Yes, of course.
Stuff like the Sahara with the heated seats and the nicer interiors, those are more livable. Whereas like a 4Runner, an SR5, and a Tier D Off-Road and Tier D Pro are all kind of the same. It's very different depending, the character of the Jeep changes depending on the trip.
Absolutely. All right, so now we are in my favorite of the bunch, the Land Rover.
Your favorite of the bunch?
I mean, it's a close call between this and the G-Wagon because the G-Wagon is awesome, especially just listening to it. But to me, this is the most comfortable out of the 4 that we have brought today.
Yeah, even this bean can spec, the base boy with coil suspension, steel wheels, and almost no options. This is such a luxurious ride quality.
But this is still, I mean, out of all the options we get, this is the one that I would spec out and take. The white steelies, the green, it's all my favorite. The short wheelbase, I think it's awesome.
And I think one of the big differences, even though like in this video, it looks fairly similar to the Wrangler because they're both two doors and they're both kind of stubby, when you are in it in person, the width difference between these two is nutso.
Oh yeah, it is massive in here. Even though it's still a relatively smaller vehicle, you don't feel that way on the inside.
You also sit your butt some like 6 or 8 inches taller.
Very regal up here.
Huge windows. Yeah, this is a super comfortable, refined ride. Everyone thinks like, oh, it's a Defender, you have to get the 6-cylinder, the V8, and you got to spend 80 or 100 or 120 or $150,000. But even if you get a used base model like this one, you're gonna have a really comfortable ride.
Oh, yeah, especially with that turbo. It's quick, but you know, the suspension just absorbs all the cracks and imperfections in the road. It's a really comfortable ride, and it's still pretty quick.
Now, Jen, if I gave you $60,000 and said, go buy a used Defender like we did, would you go for the 90, the 2-door, or the 110 4-door?
I think I would still go the 90.
Really?
I still really like the 90. Look, I don't have a family. I just got one dog. I don't need all of the seats. You still fit two people very comfortably back there. I think the 2 doors, the 90s, look really, really cool.
All right, fair enough. Hot take from Jen. I agree completely. I mean, I think they're just the most fun of the Defenders. And in a world where everything is kind of becoming the same old crossover blob, having a fun off-road and utilitarian on-road vehicle is something worth something.
Agreed. Well said.
So Jen, I'm going to have a hot take for you.
Let's hear it.
I think of these four, the G-Wagon actually, from just a strictly steering and ride quality standpoint, is the worst. These things are pretty agricultural to drive.
I mean, they're meant to be in like a big safari, right?
Well, they're meant to be on Hollywood Boulevard.
Yeah, that's true.
Is where they're meant to be.
But the ride quality feels like you're in a safari.
And part of the problem is, you start off with a very off-road capable vehicle that's never meant to have 560 horsepower. And then when you give it 560 horsepower, you have to firm up the suspension and add huge brakes and kind of do everything you can to make sure it doesn't fall over. And that really kind of kills some of the comfort in this thing.
A little bit, yeah. I wouldn't say it's the most aerodynamic, considering it's just a giant shoebox on wheels, but it is still quick, it's loud, it looks good.
And it does make you feel the most special.
It does.
Even in a used G-Wagon, you feel like such a baller cruising
Oh,
around.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And even though the ride is stiff and the steering's not good, the actual interior is really pretty well equipped. So we have heated seats, ventilated seats, adaptive cruise control, dual zone automatic climate control. We got a little sunroof. I mean, so it's got a lot of nice features in here. And it's actually, the seats are pretty good, and like, you know, the interior is actually very quiet. You got this Alcantara everywhere, which is super cool.
It's quiet in here for sure.
And it's also very fast. I mean, for an SUV of any kind, it just picks up its stuff and takes off.
I will say, it fills my heart.
Yeah, and the sound too, right?
Yes, exactly.
So of the four, this is the most fun?
Yeah, I would say this is the most fun. I would say the Defender is the most comfortable.
Yes.
The 4Runner is probably the most practical.
Yes.
And the Jeep, well, the Jeep is also pretty fun, especially when you take the top off.
That's a great point. It's going to be close on the fun factor. Every day, the G-Wagon's more fun. On the right summer day with the doors off,
yep.
Wrangler's more fun. But I kind of think that this in some ways drives the worst of the four, even though it's by far the fastest.
Yeah, I can see that.
And the new one with the independent suspension drives a lot better, and that was a huge improvement. This one is kind of the off-road one that I love with the solid axles, but from a day-to-day standpoint, it's not as good as like the Wrangler or the Defender or the 4Runner.
Agreed.
So folks, obviously the prices in all four of these are all over the board. Some are new, some are used, some are very used. But Jen, you can buy all these in various trims for about $50,000. Mm-hmm. If I were to give you $50,000 today, are you buying a new Wrangler, a new 4Runner, slightly used Defender, or a more used G-Wagon?
Honestly, it would really be a toss-up between the Defender and the G-Wagon.
Okay.
Because where it's a toss-up is the G-Wagon is so cool, right? It sounds amazing. It is fast as all get out. You feel like a baller. but the Defender has a lot of those creature comforts that I'm after, and it's just a little more smooth, elegant ride. So I think at the end of the day, I might go with the Defender.
Now, I am not as practical as Jen, and I say roll the dice on a used G-Wagon, even though it's a little crude in how it does some of the stuff. You just can't beat the experience of a 500 horsepower shoebox. Well, folks, let us know what you think. This has been Tommy.
And Jen.
We'll get back to off-roading next week, I promise.